what have you?
Well, the first thing is that the family, consistent with the socialistic underlying of a family system, it tends to be everybody, families always say, well, we want to treat everybody equally.
Oh, yeah.
And the children expect that.
Uh-huh.
And if you have a family business and 2 children are in it and 2 children are not in it, then the problem is, well, how do we treat them equally? Well, we just divide the business up in 4 shares.
Yeah.
Well, so who could say that equal isn't fair?
Mm-hmm.
Well, equal is unfair to the persons that are not working for the company. If there are children not working for the company, they have stock, say, in a family business, maybe a partnership interest. And if it's a corporation, closely held family corporations rarely pay dividends. Mm-hmm. They can elect to be an S corporation, and dividends would pay, but that's usually just to pay your taxes. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the money comes out of the corporation in salaries and bonuses. And of course, the non-employed children, the 2 that just have stock and don't have a job, are not sharing in the bonuses. Mm-hmm. But they're seeing their siblings going to conventions, to fancy places. They drive fancy cars that belong to the corporation. So they begin to consider their siblings that are in the business as plunderers. Uh-huh. And when they rebel and go to an attorney, and the attorney writes a letter to the brothers, we should be paying dividends here to these people, and the insiders look upon the non-employed ones as plunderers. They inherited this. They didn't put any money in the company. They inherited it. Yeah. And the parasites, yeah. They're the parasites. They didn't do anything. They haven't done anything. They haven't contributed to the business, and they expect to get paid. Yeah. And so you have this. It makes a lot of business for lawyers, but it's
darn.
Not the kind of business that's very rewarding.
And not very pleasant, to have to deal with that type of thing. Yeah. Okay. Well, what are some of the emotional issues to consider for family members?
Well, gosh, there are lots of them. Well, the fairness one and the whole idea that money becomes a symbol of love, and so if I'm not getting paid I've been here just as long as my older brother. He came transferred from somebody else, and he's getting paid a lot more than I am, and I don't understand. So my wife is bugging me about it every day. How come he gets paid much more than you do? And so finally he goes to Mom and said, Mom, could you put a word into Dad that we really need more money? And so Mom goes to Dad, and then Dad, barks at her. And they have an argument, and maybe something happens. I mean, a knee-jerk reaction is a child in the business has a baby. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, they're going to need more money. We ought to give them a raise. Mm-hmm. And the one who doesn't have any children doesn't get the raise. Mm-hmm. So it's not on a merit basis. Mm-hmm. It's on a need basis, as we talked about before.
Right.
So that's one of the significance ones.
And is Mom or Dad always loved you best, or whatever?
Common line in disputes in estates.
Yeah.
We all know that Mom loved you best. That's right.
What about people who are working in the business and maybe even key employees, but they're not family members?
Yeah, well, that's the flip side. To the extent that the family systems are dominating in the running of the business, then the non-family members are at jeopardy of not getting rewarded fairly. They may be getting rewarded fairly, but they don't feel it's being fair when the sibling who doesn't, plays golf twice a week and drives a new company car all the time, and it comes in late and leaves early, that's fair. I mean, mm-hmm. But if the non-family member complains to anybody, he's probably going to have to look for another job. So that puts conflicts on the in the staff, and of course the staff knows when a son comes in, the daughter comes into the business, they know, they're going to get advanced a lot faster than the non-family member. And that causes problems in the business that have to be dealt with.
And then, again, if it's a key employee, I mean, this might be the person that now is the one that maybe is out there creating the products or building those relationships that really are helping the business to continue. And if they lost it, there may not be a business.
Well, that's certainly true. And when it comes to promotions, that's really a problem. And I know the family patriarchs or the leaders of the business, typically the founders of the business, are really agonized sometimes about whether to turn the business over to the son or the daughter when she's really not here. She is not prepared or not qualified, but they can't really turn it over to the non-family member. They're afraid to do that, and so a lot of bad decisions are made.
Yeah. Okay, well, gee, we've been talking about all these emotional issues. So, like you said, we lawyers and accountants are pretty good with maybe our hammers and our screwdrivers, and maybe something else is needed, like a scalpel and sutures or something. Yeah. So when do you bring a psychologist to the table?
Well, that, frankly, from my point of view, is the most difficult thing that I have to deal with. And I make the recommendation, and I'd say probably 1 out of 7 accepts it. Usually it goes something like this. I think you need somebody to come in and meet with your whole family, sort out the issues in your family, and maybe somebody, maybe not the same person, comes in and deals with your business system and makes an analysis of how things, what they see, what the issues are. Well, that's right away, neither of those costs are going to enhance, in their mind, the bottom line. They'd much rather bring in some marketing advisor or something where they feel they're getting bang for their buck. But they're jeopardizing the life of the business by not addressing these issues. And then they're afraid to bring in somebody like that. And so the psychologists have now come up with lots of different names for what they do, succession planning, or there's a bunch of them that are euphemisms for
dealing with family emotional issues.
A knee-jerk reaction, if you're talking to a psychologist, there must be something wrong with you. And that's just so far from, okay, I mean, there's something wrong with all of us in that sense, but the communications is just the key one. And as I said, well, one person, great guru in this business of advising family business, is referred to the organizational chart in the family business as a spider web. Oh. With mom, with dad in the middle, and all these things going out to the other things, and then over here outside the box is mom, and then down here in the corner with a direct line from CEO dad to bookkeeper. And nobody else is connected with the bookkeeper, just dad. And everybody else has a chain of command, but so it's
out of the loop.
Yeah, it's very, and it's typical of families and with how they operate.
How do you go about finding somebody like this, somebody that can help people to deal with your issues?
There's some locally, one up in Napa does a lot of this. There are the Family Firm Institute, which is a national organization. They have a big website, and they have sites to people. There are other people around that can advise on this. On the psychological side, there are other firms, not so much law firms, but accounting firms, because they're so close to the finances of the business, that they branch out into getting into the appraisal business.
Yeah, and a lot of valuations.
And valuations. And if you're going to do a true succession planning, you really need to have a valuation so they know what they're dealing with, because frequently families have no idea the value of their business, and they may change their plans drastically if they have some fantasy that the business is worth this huge number, and it turns out that it's only that. And vice versa is most likely the case, that they think it's worth this amount, and it turns out that it's potentially worth this amount. So
It depends so much, and again, when you got these key players, like if Dad's out of the picture now,
Yeah,
I mean that's going to do something to the value of the business. Or if Mom was
That's
the key
right.
player.
That's right. And,
So
that leads to succession planning then,
Yeah.
and to the need for succession planning, and the need to do it based on a business basis, and then integrate the family issues with it. So you need really two skilled advisors to guide you. But if we go to the family, not the family business counselor, but the family counselor, when there's dysfunction in the family system. When there's dysfunction in the business system, you tend to go to the business advisor, and then you may need to go to both. But there are people out there that do that.
Okay, well, we just have probably a couple minutes left. Maybe you can give a few suggestions about how to get started with this process. Let's see what I'm about 3 minutes or so.
Well, you get started by the CEO or the CEO's advisor, who's the patriarch of the family, is getting them to commit to what's going to happen when you're not here. And retiring is very difficult for somebody who's been in this business all their life, and it's part of their family, it's part of them. And what are they going to do when they retire? And Mom is very interested in that too, because she doesn't really want Dad home.
Getting in her hair.
Taking up, her space and demanding, so. But Mom wants Dad to retire, and so because he brings the business home every night and worries about all this stuff, and she'd like to see him. He's entitled to get out of that.
Yeah, enjoy life a little bit. Maybe spend a little more time with her.
But he's afraid that we're always afraid that the business is going to go downhill, and where's my retirement? Well, if you have a retirement plan going, that helps. And there's always a choice of, sell. And but that's why you have to bring in somebody who's. And you could start with the financial advisor, the accountant, if they have the qualifications to do that. They could bring in the other side, but what they need to talk to their primary advisor needs to be prepared to tell them what they see, they think they need, and that's how you get started.
Okay, we're about out of time. So maybe you have a final word of wisdom?
Well, my wisdom really isn't about the business, it's about the family, and I think one of the most significant things that families can do is to join into supporting things in the community. And I preach the gospel of including your children, including the community as one of your children when doing your estate plan. And the same while they're alive. The business can make gifts and to the community, to enrich the community, and that does pull the family together. And if the business is noticed as big supporter of community things, they always, even if they're not in the business, they always identify. Oh, I know your dad or your mom, and they give, and it builds something outside just the business.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. John, thanks so much for being my guest. It's such a pleasure having you always here. And folks, I hope we've given you something to think about. Again, this is just a starting point, but family businesses particularly need to give attention because the time does come when it's time to think about making changes, bringing the new blood in. So with that, we hope you join us next time on Financial Insider Weekly.